Mckenzie is a senior and presented a TED Talk last year. She is the current Vice President of Theater, a member of both the winter and spring track teams, and is involved in our school council. She plans on majoring in biology at Quinnipiac University with the hope of becoming a surgeon in the future. This year, Mckenzie will be speaking about the lack of representation of females in Hollywood, specifically focusing on the pay gap between men and women in the industry. She chose this topic because she wanted to spread the awareness of how the film industry treats women actors differently from their male counterparts. It is a great pleasure, and please welcome Mckenzie as she presents the lack of female representation of women in Hollywood.
Hollywood. This is the place where dreams come true. Creativity thrives here with its well-known movies and TV shows. Hollywood is the perfect place for ordinary people to make names for themselves. This bright light city is where the unimaginable becomes the possible. The idea of becoming successful in this area spreads throughout the country along with its well-known role models. With all the dreams of success clouding everyone's vision on what is really happening in Hollywood, people are missing out on the reality of how dark and negative the film industry truly is. Today, I'm going to talk about how the lack of representation of female in Hollywood. One of the main issues that sparks this lack of representation is the stereotypes in Hollywood. So women are forced to be seen and have a certain image on how they can be shown in movies and TV shows. This issue isn't only seen in teen and adult shows, but believe it or not, it actually starts with children's television shows and movies. So now in an interview with Oscar winner Gina Davis, she named a few television and movies that were affected. I'm going to be talking about two today. The first one is Finding Nemo. Now in Finding Nemo, the majority of the cast are all male characters, except for Dory, Darla, and Nemo's mom. And now Nemo's mom doesn't really count as the main part of the cast because she actually dies within the first 5 minutes of the film. So now, Finding Dory was released 13 years after when Ellen DeGeneres played Dory again. Now, when you look at this TV show, Sesame Street, it first started out with 19 male puppets. The craziest part of it all was it took 25 years to add the first female puppet. And of course, she was shown wearing a pink tutu. They had one puppet representing the entire population of females. Is this okay? The other issue that is happening is the ratios between men and women in the film industry. There's this misconception that men and women are equally represented in films and shows, but the actual reality is shocking. For every one female actress in a movie, there are 5 male actors. In the United Kingdom, the ratio is actually split between 50-50, so why is ours 5-1? In movies, it's actually rare to see 2 female characters having a conversation with one another in a film. And the majority of the time that they do, the subject of a male is brought up in the conversation. The Bechdel test was created to prove this. In order for a movie to pass this test, 2 female characters have to have a conversation with one another just one time throughout the film, and they can't mention the subject of a male. So now this chart shows the percentage of Oscar's Best Picture winners that have passed or failed the test since the 1930s. A little over 50% of the films did not have 2 female characters talk to one another without the subject of a male. So now this next chart I'm going to show you takes this chart and breaks it down by decades. Now as you can see here, in the 1930s, 60% of the movies actually passed. But if you go back to our current decade, less than 40% has passed. So why are we going backwards? So now this next chart I'm going to show you compares males and females and the amount of words spoken in each of the Best Picture films in the Oscars throughout every year, starting from the 1990s. This chart starts out with characters that have spoken over 100 words or more, so it's mostly focused on the main characters of the film. Now, if you look here, in 2003, Chicago, with the film Chicago, women actually spoke more than men. But compared to all the rest of the data, men have way more words spoken compared to women. Now, the issue is not just seen with actors and actresses on films, but it's actually happening behind the scenes as well. Being a female director in Hollywood is extremely difficult. Producers tend to stick with the same film directors they worked before in the past, and the majority of the time that was always males. So now for every female director in Hollywood, there's actually 24 male directors. In 2016, female directors made up 7% of the top 250 highest gross-paying films. The film Wonder Woman, that was directed by Patty Jenkins, set box office records and became an amazing achievement for female directors. 11 days after the movie premiered, its worldwide gross was $435.5 million. Now, another issue in the industry is the pay gap between men and women. In 1963, the Equal Pay Act was passed, which required men and women in the same workplace working the same amount of hours to be paid the same amount. This clearly wasn't the case in 2014. During this time, there was a Sony hack leak that ended up leaking actors and actresses' salaries. The most famous actresses that year were Jennifer Lawrence, Natalie Portman, and Amy Adams. Now, when the salaries were revealed, it showed that they got paid more than their co-stars, even though all of them were nominated for Oscars that year. According to Lawrence, she didn't question her salary at the time because she didn't want to seem bratty or spoiled. And that's understandable in most cases because only 43% of the entire workforce would actually ask for a pay raise, and the 23% that said no, it was because they were uncomfortable asking. Now, in 2016, the list of Hollywood's highest paid actors and actresses were released, and Jennifer Lawrence was, of course, number one, and she reportedly made $46 million that year. Now, Scarlett Johansson was ranked second, and she made $35.5 million. So there's roughly a $10 million gap between the two. Now, when you look at the highest paid male actors of that year, Robert Downey Jr. was ranked number one, and he made $80 million, almost double the amount that Lawrence made. And the second highest paid male actor that year was only $3 million behind. So why is there a huge gap between the female actresses and such a small one for the male actors? Now, the list of the highest paid actors in 2017 was no surprise either. Mark Wahlberg was ranked number one, and he made over $68 million that year. The highest paid female was Emma Stone, and she made $26 million. Wahlberg made well over the amount that Emma Stone made, and during that same year, her co-star Ryan Gosling made $29 million, $3 million more than her. Now, if you were to combine these two lists together, Emma Stone would be ranked 14 overall, even though she's the number one female actress. 16 males made it over the $20 mark that year, where only 3 females made it over that. Now, the list for 2018 highest paid actors was even worse. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was ranked second, and he made over $124 million. Now, Scarlett Johansson was ranked first this year, and she made $40.5 million. The Rock made triple the amount that Johansson made. And the reason why I didn't choose the first highest paid actor was because he ended up selling his company. This was George Clooney, and so he made more than expected, so I felt like the data wouldn't be as accurate. So now when movies finally premiere in theaters, actors usually get a percentage of the box office profits. It's a proven fact that a working woman in America makes about 78% of their male coworkers. Now, when the film American Hustle was released, Lawrence and Adams ended up getting 7% of the box office profits, but now their male co-stars Cooper and Bale received 9%. The majority of the industry is well aware of this pay gap between men and women, so it makes it even harder for a woman to turn down an offer in Hollywood because they can easily be replaced. Overall, the work environment for females is unfair. Acting requires the same level of skills for both men and women in the industry. They should be receiving the same amount of pay along with being equally represented in movies and TV shows. It's not right to pass a law to prevent the pay gap and not follow through on it. The standards that women are being held at to talk and act and look a certain way is rather difficult and quite frankly impossible. They should be treated with just as much respect as the men in the industry. Women should not be held to these impossible standards. As insignificant as it may seem, we consumers can actually help in leveling out the playing field. The next time you are buying a movie ticket, choose the film with a female lead or a female director. This can not only help female creators get the recognition they deserve, but also inspire young women to step up in the film industry. It's time for a change and everyone needs it now, and that's my key to the world. Thank you.